So here we are with Brotherhooves Social, the episode that I and many others were convinced would be an episode dedicated to the brother ponies, much like the G1 episode that was dedicated to big brother ponies. So too were the hopes that we would get to see Big Mac in shining armor and other male ponies in a central focus. Instead of having a Big Mac in shining armor episode, what we got was a Big Mac episode. The episode starts off with Apple Bloom giving all of her love and attention to Applejack. And as Apple Bloom once said to a plant that was having a choking fit, "You're laying it on a little thick, don't you think, pal?" Because it was very obvious that Big Mac was getting envious of Apple Bloom and Applejack's sisterly relationship and wanted to have some quality time with his sister, and Apple Bloom just kept laying on how awesome Applejack was and continued to ignore Big Mac. Luckily, Applejack was able to pick up on Big Mac's feelings a little more quickly than Apple Bloom was. When the Sisterhooves Social gets cancelled on account of Applejack going to Manhattan, Apple Bloom feels unhappy about having to miss out on all of the fun. Then Stoodaloo and Sweetie Belle come over with the offer that they should all cheer for Stoodaloo. And Granny Smith mentions that other family members can partake in these events as well. It's pretty clear that that meant that anyone can be in the Sisterhooves Social even if they're not related, and even if they're not necessarily female. While this could have solved everybody's problems, it only served to make things more interesting for the episode, as Big Mac felt that being in the Sisterhooves Social meant dressing up as a woman. Much like in the footsteps of Mrs. Doubtfire or many other cross-dressing related movies, Big Mac puts on a dress and a wig and tries to pass himself off as a female, fooling basically nobody except for one poor old guy who had a crush on Big Mac's female persona. Big Mac even walks around talking in a female voice, reminding me a lot of how Fluttershy passed herself off as a man after taking the poison joke and substituting for Big Mac. Now it's Big Mac's turn to tell a small lie and fabricate this ridiculous persona, showing us somewhat that while Applejack may be the honest one, the rest of the Apple family isn't as serious about honesty as Applejack is. Also, this is sort of a case of we get to hear Big Mac talk and say more than yep and nope, but because it's not his deep manly voice, we don't get to hear as much true Big Mac dialogue as we would think we would. In fact, Big Mac seems to be putting on a completely different personality, showing himself to be quite a talented actor. Despite getting his cutie mark in apples, he could definitely do a very good stage performance. We do get to hear Big Mac's real voice at the end, where he has not only quite a few lines, but some really important and deeply emotionally moving lines at that, showing us that when Big Mac does talk as himself and not as another character, or not dubbed over by a deep-voiced Fluttershy, he actually has deep, important things to say. Still, the episode was fun and I couldn't stop laughing through most of it. This also does sort of say something about Big Mac, as we keep putting him into situations where he gets to enjoy effeminate things. Him dressing as drag in this episode, him being a Alatorn princess in a previous episode, and him having that obsession with the Smarty Pants doll that used to belong to Twilight. Not to mention any other situations where I might be forgetting about, wherein Big Mac has shown a little bit of a girl side to him. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, just interesting to think that he has that personality. And even though nobody steps up to take the place of Sweetie Belle's missing sister, she doesn't seem to care too much about competing and is very maturely accepting the situation that she's found herself in. We get instead to see Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo bond, which is also another thing that made the episode fun. The episode may not have been what I was expecting from the Brotherhooves Social, but it was still overall enjoyable. The song was a bit cringy, and not one that I'm going to be singing over and over again anytime soon. But just out of the gate, it's a bit better than Spite's cringeworthy song from last season. And just like Spite's cringeworthy song, it does sort of grow on one as one hears it over and over again in reviewings. I do sort of wonder how the naysayers are taking this episode. There's a good number of bronies who, when they saw the Manhattan episode and heard Applejack going on about the Sisterhoods Social, they just sort of had a snarky attitude and said, "Oh, too bad we're not seeing the Sisterhoods Social. That might have been a better episode." Now you're getting it. I wonder if these people will be eating their words, or if they'll be confused as to the fact that this is a 2 episodes happening at the same time deal like we had in season 3, or if they'll think that this is a completely different day and that Applejack is being told away on a map adventure for a second time in a row. There are some people who aren't quite as quick as others to realize the setup of different situations, who don't always catch on to things like foreshadowing and simultaneous episodes and prequels and things like that. But for the most part, the Brony fandom is pretty sharp on this kind of situation, and did indeed figure out ahead of time that thanks to the foreshadowing, that this week's episode was going to be the Sisterhoods Social, and it was going to be at the same time as the Manhattan adventure. But while not everyone called it, many did figure it out ahead of time. Of course, it's no surprise that Big Mac can sing. He is, after all, one of the Ponytones. Unfortunately, the stuff that made Big Mac flub himself was not just the singing and the athletic stuff. It was the fact that he had to sing in a female voice, and he would accidentally mess up the voice and return to his male voice. It was the fact that he had changed his name in order to create the disguise for himself, and he got mixed up sometimes as to what name he was supposed to be giving himself. It was the fact that he had chosen to wear a dress and could no longer move with athletic precision while still wearing the dress. The smarter move would have been a paint job to alter the cutie mark and coat color, and to have gone dress-free for a while, or at least worn something a little more athletic instead of fancy. So yeah, all of Big Mac's clumsiness came from him trying to keep up the false persona. We can also draw the conclusion that since Apple Bloom has other family members that could have also participated in the Sisterhooves Social, like Babseed or Brayburn or Goldie Delicious, that we can conclude that those other family members either weren't athletic enough or lived at too far a distance for such a short notice, leaving Apple Bloom very few second choices other than Big Mac himself. So, apparently Wind Rider is not the only pony that can pull off the pretending to be a female pony while wearing a disguise. However, since all of the other ponies except for one immediately recognized Big Mac despite his best efforts to appear female, and Wind Rider perfectly imitated Rainbow Dash and fooled everybody except Rarity into thinking he was Rainbow Dash, Wind Rider makes for the better female. And that old guy who wanted to date Big Mac when he thought Big Mac was a woman, he's still too old even if Big Mac had really been a woman. So it still really wouldn't have worked out. And my final thought for now is, too bad the Sisterhooves Social didn't include a turkey call. Otherwise, we would have had a guaranteed blue ribbon for Big Mac and Apple Bloom. But I guess the point of the story was to have the pair humorously and comedically fail at everything they were attempting and to learn a lesson from it, as opposed to winning everything and then losing at the last minute on a technicality, which they could have also gone that direction. Overall, this was a fun, funny, enjoyable episode, and the ending was sweet and emotionally touching. I enjoyed it overall, but could not put this within my top 5. Nor would I put it in my top 10 or even my top episodes of the season. It's a good deal better than the bottom tier stuff, but it's not top tier either. It fits right in the middle sort of where I'd rank it. I'll have those rankings figured out on a later date. For right now, it's certainly no Pinky Pride. Wonderful character development for Big Mac, and the ending was probably one of the best that we've had this season. Anyhow, that's all my thoughts on the subject for now. Thank you for watching, and good night. Oh, I'm not Applejack, but I'm okay. I sleep all night and work all day. I butt those trees, I skip and jump. I like to press wildflowers. I put on women's clothing and hang around in bars.